Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with our series, Do Politicians Really Practice What They Preach? In this video we're going to be looking at the question, what is democracy? Ooh, that's a big one. This series is brought to you by our new book, Are All Lives Equal? Why Cost-Benefit Analysis Values Rich Lives More and How Philosophy Can Fix It. Stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Now, democracy is arguably the easiest term to define in the series. Simply put, democracy is rule by the people. A government where the decisions are made either directly or indirectly through elected representatives by the people is a democracy. Democracies are contrasted with autocracies, where rule is concentrated in the hands of one, plutocracies, where the rich rule, theocracies, where the church rules, etc. Also, in contrast to many of the positions here, support for democracy is not controversial, or at least not controversial in much of the Western world. Most people support democracy in principle, in contrast to the disagreement on whether or not liberalism or conservatism is a good or bad thing. The challenge, then, is determining what constitutes a real democracy. This may have to do with the features of voting and governance of the democracy itself, or supplemental features that may make a democracy stronger. There are many countries around the world that call themselves democracies that many people would think, that's more like an autocracy. For example, the Research Institute Varieties of Democracy, or V-Dem, has classified 6 different increasing levels of democracy, and each country could be scaled on each of those levels, could be ranked against each other on each of those levels, and in fact, the V-Dem dataset does exactly that. The base level is electoral democracies, which meet the basic conditions for democratically elected governments. The next step up is liberal democracies that combine electoral democracy with respect for civil liberties and human rights. After that are participatory democracies, which, in addition to being liberal democracies, allow for more direct democracy and referendums. Deliberative democracies go a step further and take into account the common good and provide a consultative process for decision-making with the population. And finally, egalitarian democracies do all of this and provide a certain level of social services and public goods to allow people to participate in the democratic process. Now, arguably, these traditions may really be more reflective of the other political ideologies we've seen in this series, with liberal democracies combining democracy with liberalism's respect for human rights, deliberative democracies adding in republicanism's importance of civic participation, and egalitarian democracies adding in progressive ideals of social support. In fact, we might map many ideas of good governance, particularly in America, onto each of the ideologies we've looked at in this series. The ideology that all men are created equal is part of liberalism. The idea that states are laboratories of democracy is an important component of conservatism. The idea that the country is by the people, for the people, is a crucial component of democracy. The idea that we have checks and balances in our government and in society is an important component of republicanism. And the idea that society should promote the general welfare could be seen as a component of progressivism. So, the point of this is not that one is the right kind of democracy, but rather that there are many things that we can call democracy, which may have more stringent or more lax requirements, leading to a lot of people disagreeing as to what constitutes a democracy. Even when the basic definition of rule by the people is fairly simple, how it's actually implemented is quite complicated and really matters for how responsive a government really is to their people. Further, even strictly defining democracy as an electoral democracy, it's often more of a spectrum than a binary. Certainly there are regimes that are clearly autocratic that don't even try to be democracies, but there are others that are more or less democratic. If you vote every few years, but there's no opposition to vote for, all parties are controlled by the same group, or districts are gerrymandered to prevent you from having a real choice, your democracy may not be as strong as one where there are multiple parties to choose from, or those parties are controlled by different groups that actually are competing for your votes and responsive to your ideas, or where districts aren't gerrymandered such that your vote really does matter. There are also several paradoxes associated with democracy. We won't get into them here, but we have separate videos and even a series on those, so feel free to check those out if you're interested. Check out our series on Arrow's impossibility theorem or Downs' voting paradox for more. While the idea of democracy has broad support today, it has not always. Plato and Aristotle both critiqued the Athenian democracy, which is often held up as the first, albeit limited, example of democracy. Plato argued that democracy is problematic, since the people who will be elected will be charismatic manipulators instead of effective leaders, and the masses are uneducated enough to not be able to understand the complex issues of ruling. While less concerned than Plato, Aristotle also raised concerns about democracy. He argued that democracy was a deviant form of government, since it was inferior to rule by the virtuous. However, he did note that people coming together might be able to be more virtuous than any of their individual viewpoints on their own. It's also important to note that modern autocracies have critiqued democracy as spending too much time in negotiations and not being able to act quickly, and even democracies have critiqued themselves for falling behind autocracies because real deliberative democracy, where people are involved, takes time and can be difficult to find agreement, and democracies may not be able to move forward in the same way that autocracies can because of that need for consultation. But the democracies might argue there are reasons that consultation provides benefits in the long term, whether that's rights or economic benefits for people that prevent it from falling into big swings that are often seen in autocracies where you will have a leader rise and then fall, and country will go through a violent revolution. So, one principle of democracies is that everyone gets exactly one vote. But what if the rich got more votes? Not because they actually spent more money, but just because they had more to begin with. Such a strange system is implemented by economists using a framework known as cost-benefit analysis. To learn more about this and how philosophy can fix it to make things more democratic for everyone, check out our new book, Are All Lives Equal? And a blog that digs into this problem in depth, The Lie at the Heart of Economics. You can find the book on Amazon. It's available in paperback now, and the blog is available on Carneades.org. What do you think? Is democracy desirable? What type of democracy would you like to live in of the 6 types we looked at? How democratic is the country that you live in right now? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe if you like this video and you want to see more. Hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date. We are publishing videos more frequently right now, so the notification bell can be helpful for you to make sure you don't miss a single one or miss a video in this series. We've got a number more videos to go. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org, and stay skeptical, everybody.